Coming up on today's Airborne, a UPS A300 goes down in Alabama with a loss of 2. A proposed AD could impact some 6,000 Continental engines, and the Department of Justice sues to block the U.S. Airways American merger. Welcome to Airborne on Aero-TV. I'm Ashley Hale. A UPS A300 cargo plane has gone down on approach to Birmingham, Alabama, and the 2 pilots on board were fatally injured. The accident occurred at about 4:55 local time Wednesday morning. FAA spokeswoman Kathleen Bergen told the Associated Press that the flight was UPS Flight 1354, which had originated in Louisville, Kentucky. The 2 pilots were thought to be the only people on board the aircraft. The plane went down just short of Birmingham Airport. The authorities said the plane came down in a field away from populated areas, skidded across the highway, and then exploded. Photographs from the scene show the plane engulfed in flames, and later the wreckage strewn across the field. The NTSB has dispatched a GO team to the site to begin the investigation into the crash. If your aircraft is powered by a Continental engine, you'll want to check the details of the FAA's newly proposed AD. For certain Airmotive Engineering Corporation replacement parts, manufacturer approval cylinder assemblies marketed by Engine Components International Division used on the Continental Motor Incorporated models 520 and 550 reciprocating engines, and all other engine models approved for the use of CMI models 520 and 550 cylinder assemblies. The proposed AD was prompted by failure reports of multiple cylinder head-to-barrel separations and cracked and leaking aluminum cylinder heads. The proposed AD would require initial and repetitive inspections, replacement of cracked cylinders, and replacement of cylinder assemblies at reduced times in service. This proposed AD would also prohibit the installation of affected cylinder assemblies into any engine. The FAA's actions arose out of a February 2012 safety recommendation by the NTSB. However, in a move that is almost unprecedented, the FAA proposed AD goes far beyond what the NTSB recommended. The NTSB's recommendation was to remove the cylinders from service when they reach Continental's recommended engine TBO, which is typically 1,600 to 2,200 hours. But the FAA is proposing to remove them from service at 1,000 hours, and in addition to remove a substantial number of under 500-hour cylinders immediately. The FAA estimates the cost to properly inspect and repair the affected engines will total some $82.6 million. Comments must be received on the proposed AD by October 11th of this year. ECI said, in the company's view, the FAA's proposed actions will degrade safety, not improve it. The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit to block the merger of U.S. Airways and American Airlines on the grounds that it would, quote, substantially lessen competition for commercial air travel throughout the United States, end quote. Assistant Attorney General Bill Bayer said, quote, if this merger were to go forward, consumers will lose the benefit of head-to-head competition between U.S. Airways and American on thousands of airline routes across the country, in cities big and small. They will pay more for less service because the remaining 3 legacy carriers, United, Delta, and the New American, will have very little incentive to compete on price. Neither airline needs this merger to succeed. We simply cannot approve a merger that would result in U.S. consumers paying higher fares, higher fees, and receiving less service, end quote. The suit was joined by the Attorney General of the state of Texas, American's home state, Arizona, U.S. Airways' home state, Pennsylvania, home to one of U.S. Airways' largest hubs, Florida, Tennessee, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., where both airlines operate. Both airlines have said they will launch a, quote, vigorous and strong defense against the suit. EASA has awarded an approved model list supplemental type certificate to Aspen Avionics for its Evolution flight display. The EASA approval, effective August 6, 2013, authorizes installation of Aspen system in more than 700 aircraft registered in EASA countries. Aircraft currently using software version 1.1 may convert to version 2.6.2, as long as the aircraft complies with the new STC. Software upgrades are free from Aspen, but dealer installation charges may apply. Since receiving its Federal Aviation Administration STC AML in 2008, Aspen Avionics has installed thousands of Evolution displays in general aviation aircraft, indicating an exceptional demand for an affordable glass cockpit solution. The EASA AML STC list includes over 40 aircraft manufacturers, representing over 700 individual aircraft models now eligible for retrofit with Aspen's Evolution displays. Well, I'm certainly not George Jetson. I'm not even his wife, Jane. But this next story makes me wonder if our visions of the 21st century are finally coming true. First, Terrafugia's flying car, and now the Martin JetPack may finally be ready for flight testing. New Zealand inventor Glenn Martin started working on the JetPack more than 30 years ago as a garage entrepreneur. New Zealand authorities recently gave the company a flying permit to allow manned flight testing of the device. 2 cylinders attached to a carbon fiber frame containing propulsion fans make up the Martin JetPack. It's controlled by a pair of joysticks, one in each hand of the pilot, who would need no specialized training to fly it. The JetPack also is equipped with a rocket-propelled parachute, just in case things go very wrong. Martin CEO Peter Coker said that the position of the ducts on the latest prototype have been changed, resulting in a quantum leap in performance over previous models. The company says it hopes to have people flying next year. No word yet on how much the device will set back your bank account or if it uses any spacely space sprockets. You're watching Airborne, more in a moment.
Redbird Skyport is a multifaceted aviation laboratory charged with developing innovative solutions to the issues facing the industry.
It started out as a vision for a laboratory where we could objectively measure the systems and the processes that we were developing. Being able to put some objective measures behind the anecdotal evidence that we have about the value of motion and the application of this technology is very, very important, because until we can objectively measure it and play that data back, we can't design training systems that make the best use of it.
For more information about Redbird flight simulations, as well as Redbird's new Skyport, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com or www.redbirdskyport.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero-TV, our website, or our podcast, drop us an email to news-by@aero-news.net. Project Loon, created by Google as a possible way to deliver wireless internet service to people in remote areas, has moved from New Zealand to the Central California Valley. Google says it has made flights over Fresno, California, to test the strength of its wireless service in an area where there is a lot of other radio signals. The balloon's antennas apparently receive a lot of RF noise in populated areas, making it more difficult for the transmitters aboard the balloons to provide a clean signal. One way to cut through the clutter is to increase the output signal strength, and these tests over Fresno will help the company determine how strong that signal needs to be. Google Loon would use a constellation of balloons in the stratosphere to relay wireless internet service to underserved locations. After ANN completed its most extensive coverage of AirVenture ever, we had the chance to see an organization and a large part of the aviation community in transition. And for a change, this is a good thing. ANN's CEO and Editor-in-Chief Jim Campbell is here with an overview of an Oshkosh few of us are likely to not forget. Here's today's barnstorming.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, folks. Well, we are rested and somewhat recovered from Oshkosh, and thankfully there was a lot of great things to recover from. This year's Oshkosh was not what many expected. It was a wholly successful event. Now, mind you, it had an awful lot weighed against it. It had the nonsense created by the FAA, which, if it's not illegal, was certainly about as anti-aviation as we have ever seen the agency act. And let's face it, they're not exactly known for being that pro-GA. But more important, this was an event that was saddled with the baggage of last year, when members and volunteers had figured they'd about had enough, when the tenor and the tone of the organization had taken a turn that so many disagreed with, and when leadership obviously was not quite clear on where its membership really wanted it to go. And everybody waited, worrisome at best, to see what was going to happen in Oshkosh, Wisconsin this year. Well, the fact of the matter is this: it was a phenomenal success. It wasn't necessarily quite as big as past years. It wasn't necessarily as financially profitable for EAA, although many vendors were saying it was some of the best days and weeks they've had in an awful long time. What it was a chance for leadership to take its place and say, this is our new direction and I'm listening, and they did. It was a chance for members and volunteers to say, we wanted to be heard and you heard us. And it was an opportunity for the community to come together, have an event, be successful, enjoy each other's company, enjoy the direction of the organization, and enjoy aviation and all its grandeur, even without the military and even without the FAA. And maybe because the FAA wasn't there, who knows. It provides a phenomenal lesson that the community, when it bands together, when it makes itself known, when leadership listens, and when proper leadership is chosen, well, amazing things can result. AOPA, are you listening? Have you taken a look at what happened at Oshkosh? Granted, it's not a huge success as successes go, but it was a sudden 180-degree change in direction. It was a very positive change in direction, and the membership and the volunteers are tremendously in favor of the new EAA, and so are we. We're not giving them carte blanche. We're not saying that we're going to agree with everything they're doing, but we know the proper spirit and the proper faith in this community is being displayed by an organization that represents so many of us and is concerned about building a community that can provide an aviation future for all of us now and our children and our children's children for the future. Once again, AOPA, are you listening? We need EAA. EAA is listening and responding. We need AOPA. So far not listening, so far not responding. What do you make of that? For the Aero-News Network, Airborne and Aero-TV, I'm Jim Campbell.
Lockheed Martin's F35B short takeoff vertical landing aircraft will be going to sea next week. The developmental aircraft is slated to undergo sea trials known as Developmental Test 2 on board the USS Wasp. DT2 is the second of 3 planned tests aimed at defining and expanding the F-35B's shipboard operating envelope for the Marine Corps. This next round of testing follows the recent accomplishment of the 500th vertical landing on August 3rd. BF-1, the aircraft which reached the milestone, also accomplished the variant's first vertical landing in March of 2010 at NAS Patuxent River, Maryland. The F-35B is the variant of the Joint Strike Fighter for the U.S. Marine Corps, capable of short takeoffs and vertical landings for use on amphibious ships or expeditionary airfields to provide air power to the Marine Air Ground Task Force. The F-35B will replace Marine AV-8B Harriers and F-18 Hornets. The successful completion of the upcoming sea trials is key to declaring F-35 initial operating capability for the U.S. Marine Corps in 2015. Pilots looking for work will want to note that fractional jet ownership service provider Flexjet is intensifying its recruitment of pilots through the aviation community to satisfy increasing demand. Flexjet recently reported 96% growth of new fractional and jet card sales when comparing January to June of 2013 to the same period in 2012. Jason Wise, Vice President of Operations Flexjet, said, quote, We are thrilled to be expanding our dedicated pilot team during this exciting growth period and anticipate hiring in the double digits in 2013 and beyond." End quote. Flexjet first officers are all type rated in their assigned aircraft and complete the same training as required by captains. Additionally, pilots are trained and checked every 6 months, regardless of seat assignment. Interested pilots should have at least 2,500 hours of total flight time, 500 hours of multi-engine flight time, and 500 hours of turbine time. Additionally, all new pilots are required to have an airline transport pilot certificate and a first-class medical. Well, that's our program. Remember, you can get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And please remember, Airborne is streamed twice weekly and is always online. Join us again next Tuesday for a new edition of Airborne. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching.